What happens when the traditional path doesn't fit and young people are left wondering, where do they belong? Today, we are talking about purpose, possibility, and the role education and business leaders play in opening real doors for youth. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Reagan Weeks, Superintendent of the Prairie School Division here in Medicine Hat, whose work is helping students discover careers, confidence, and direction by connecting learning to real people, real work, and real opportunity before they ever even leave high school. Dr. Reagan Weeks, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today and talk about what I love best, and that's education. So
you are with Prairie Rose School Division here in Medicine Hat. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of your journey with Prairie Rose?
Sure, yeah. I started with Prairie Rose in 2015, and I joined the school division as an assistant superintendent. And throughout my journey there, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most amazing people, right from, the custodians in our building to the past superintendents I've had the pleasure of learning from. Has just really been an impactful experience. And because of the team that we have, we've been able to move our division forward, and we think really strive to serve the rural communities that Prairie Rose is part of.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the role of superintendent now?
So this is my fifth year.
Fifth year, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you were part of, and we're going to get into a lot of the really cool things PRSD is doing, but you were kind of part of that pre-superintendent years as well, because this has been going on for quite a while, right? So you were able to kind of take the reins, if we want to say.
Yeah, it was exciting. Absolutely. Yeah. So most of the initiatives that people have heard about and are interested in that are connected to future prospects and careers for students were really launched in 2018.
Okay.
And at that time, Roger Clark was the superintendent, and he moved here from Fort Vermilion, and they had some really interesting programs that served rural students. And so a lot of the work was initiated under his leadership, and we were able to take that forward. So
I love it.
I feel very lucky to have worked with him.
Oh, that is awesome. So what pulled you first into education? And so you've been kind of assistant superintendent, for a number of years. What was your life pre?
Oh, well, I started in an elementary classroom.
All right.
I spent most of my teaching years with little people. My first school that I worked at was River Heights Elementary, which is right across from the hospital in Medicine Hat. And throughout my career, I've just been really fortunate to work with such talent and people who are really committed to transforming the student experience in the classroom. And so I went from River Heights to a vice principalship at Southview Community School, which is actually where I went to elementary school. I started there in kindergarten.
Coming full circle.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then I went on to Elm Street School, which is in the Flats in Medicine Hat, as the principal. And then I transferred to Prairie Rose in 2015.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So Prairie Rose School Division, let's get into it because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about all this stuff. 2018 was kind of that transformational year where things changed, right? And what did that look like? So we're talking about essentially, I don't know if the word curriculum's the right word to use in it, but somewhat a different curriculum and opportunities for young students. So back in 2018, what did that initial onset look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, honestly, it was a collision of a number of things happening at the same time. So one of them was that we were receiving feedback from our communities that they were really looking for tighter ties between the school environment and what happens next. So when students graduate, what does that look like? And are there possibilities to create programming and opportunities for students in high school that will encourage them to make their home in rural communities? And so we serve Oyen, New Brigden, Acadia Valley, Schuler, Irvin, Dunmore. But we also go the other way, Foremost, Bow Island, Burdett, Redcliffe. So many of the smaller communities in our area have schools at the heart of their community. They're a really important piece for the community's survival.
Yeah.
And when the school goes, so does the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's deeply important to the people who are there. And we're in Dunmore. And so we need to make sure we build those connections in those areas to serve them. And we were getting feedback that they were wanting more. So that was absolutely one piece of it.
Yeah.
Another piece of it is that we were observing, a number of us were observing, that we were seeing less engagement, less excitement from a lot of our boys in school. We were seeing kids, they had their hoodies up and their headphones on, and they needed quite a bit of coaxing to get out of mom's basement. And they visibly didn't want to be there. And you could see that. And that some of the data would support, you were seeing this rise in achievement from a lot of our girls, which we're so grateful for. And that also that trajectory needs to continue. But we knew we needed to do something to really engage the full student body. And so that population was really interested and wanting to be a main part of the school community. And so where it started was, I think, maybe just the most obvious place to start in rural, small-town Canada. We started with hockey.
Sure.
And we had a lot of people who were excited about hockey. And I tell you, it took a little bit of coaxing to get me to think that's where we need to be spending our time.
Bring that into a school environment. Really?
Yeah. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And so they convinced me. And I had a lot of passionate people who were really skilled at what they do. And we were, Emerson Edom came here, and he was driving out to Oyen and driving out to Foremost, and we were creating these small academies. And, I was standing in one of our high schools watching how those kids were moving throughout the school. Yeah. So they had, they all sort of have a certain look to them. You can spot who they are from a little ways away, and you knew who they were. But they had a confidence and a connected peer group, and they moved through the world like they were able to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. We started to ask ourselves, and we started to wonder about, could we mimic that for people that weren't elite athletes? Like, let's keep this. Let's keep going with this. Let's take this, 5 or 6 or 7 steps further with other sports, and even with this sport, what more can we do? But could we do it for a group of kids where athletics wasn't their thing necessarily? Yeah. And we decided to experiment. And so the next thing we experimented with was a flight academy. And it seems like, well, how did you get
So that was number 2.
That was number 2.
Oh, now that's a big next step.
It's a big leap. But people would ask, like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And really, what we did was we did basically a scan of the communities that we serve. Yeah. So we conducted an environmental scan, really took an asset inventory. What do we have here that we can leverage? And Super T Aviation is one of the premier flight schools in the country. Yep. And it's right here in our backyard. And I happened to golf with one of the owners of Super T Aviation. And we were chatting on a golf cart about what we were able to do with hockey, and could we do it with flight? Like, could we have a flight academy? And by the end of that round, we had the bones figured out with what that would look like. And our director of enhanced programming had a close colleague he worked with at Eagle Butte High School, who was a major aviation enthusiast. His name was Dave Rosedeba.
Yes.
And he's a long-term educator there.
And his daughter is heavily involved in it now.
That's right. Yes. And 2 of his daughters work for us. The other one is working in Ontario, I believe. But so many people had such admiration for him.
Yes.
And so many students were really impacted by the work he had done. And so the decision was, if we're going to do this, we're going to name it after him and the impact that he had. And so the Dave Rosedeba Flight Academy was born out of that series of happenings, and the rest is history.
Amazing. And so for those listening that don't know, but Dave obviously went through a very terrible health time and is no longer with us. Yeah. But it's incredible to know that his family has kind of taken the mantle. Right.
Quite a legacy.
It is,
right?
It is an incredible legacy. Right. Yeah. So you talk about kind of seeing that young boy, right? The one walking in, and all I'm thinking is, I've seen them, right?
For sure.
I'm related to one most days with the hood up, the earbuds in, like, this is my world now, right? And that was the catalyst. What are you seeing now when you walk down the hallways? I know they still have their hood up. I know they still have their earbuds in. But have you noticed?
Not all of them.
Not all of them. There you go. But have you noticed a shift, a pivot, 7-8 years later?
Absolutely. And we learned lots of lessons. So there's quite a few things that have happened since that time. One is that we've learned that if you can fly an airplane, you feel like you can do anything. Yeah. And so maybe not all of the students moving through the program are going to be professional pilots, although Many of them are, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's actually not why you are in the Flight Academy in most cases. Just like why you don't really play hockey, because in the end you're going to be in the NHL. That'd be great, but that's not the reason. Mom and dad drive you to the hockey rink every morning, and this is no different.
Sure.
Different. It teaches you leadership, responsibility, perseverance through hard things. Yeah. Getting through flight training is actually really, really hard. There's huge asks in terms of mastering exams, memorization. You obviously have to develop a lot of trust because we're letting you go up in an airplane. And so once you feel like you can do that, and you know you can do hard things, it changes you forever. Sure. And so when the next hard thing comes, the thought that goes through your mind is, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this right now, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And what an important thing for all of our young people to have inside of them. Like, I'm going to figure out how to do this because I've done hard things before. And that's really important. And we're really proud that we're able to cultivate those opportunities. We have a long way to go, and we have so much to do, and we're keeping ourselves really busy trying to accomplish those things. But that's really the motivation. That's what keeps us going. So you ask what you see. Well, I always say this, and I say it so much people might make fun of me a little bit for always saying the same thing, but they physically look taller. So you take these kids, and at Christmas in grade 10, when they're part of the program, they get a green jacket. And every time they accomplish something else in flight, they get another badge sewn onto their jacket, and it gets more filled as they move throughout the program. And it's one of the more rewarding things to see how that impacts their lives going forward.
I love how you say it. They seem taller, right? They take up more space, and there's somebody that I've read on where they even talk about when you're in a room, like, own the room, right? Like, fill the space in the room, be that person. So I love hearing that we're starting to see this out of our youth.
Yes.
I spoke to you a little bit before. I was involved in the youth group at church for a number of years. Some of those students are, part of that. At PRSD at Eagle Butte, one of them in the Flight Academy. Another one was actually in the fire. And so obviously that's right next door to where we are here.
Exactly.
So what are all the programs you have out there right now? Like, you've got the flight, you've got the hockey, you've got fire. I just mentioned. Is there anything else?
There is a few more. And if I could just talk about fire for just a second,
go. I'd love you to
tell you a little bit about that. That was part of the environmental scans that occurred. So we have some communities where there isn't a flight school, and there might be, a handful of buildings at most in the community, but almost all of them have a fire department. Yep. And what a great way to develop a program that does the exact same things we were talking about earlier. And so we were able to partner with Cypress County next door here, and also the town of Bow Island.
Okay.
And those two programs are absolutely transformational as well. Students are able to complete their level 1 and their level 2 firefighting training with those departments, but they have mentorship. Yeah. They have a network of adults and people they can look up to, who they're able to seek advice from careers and how they're going to interact with the world and what they're going to do next. And so that is a program we're really proud of as well. The physical fitness requirements, the standard first aid knowledge, the connections with Halo and the various firefighters have just been really quite remarkable to watch. We have 2 teachers who work in that program, Lyle Foran at Eagle Butte, and then we also have a teacher in Bow Island who's doing really similar work, and they're both incredible. And we're just really lucky that we have staff that's so excited to make these things happen for kids. So that's one we're really excited about as well. One of our most successful programs, really interestingly, has been the trades partnership that we have done with Medicine Hat College. Yeah. So we opened with somewhere between 50 and 60 students. The spots were filled like immediately. Yeah. And so we have students coming from Oyen, Foremost, Bow Island, and then Eagle Butte. I think those are our 4 main high schools, and they're coming from all of those locations. We have 20 students this year coming from Oyen. 20.
Holy smokes. Yeah. There's like 1,000 people in Oyen.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And we have a waiting list. So we have a lot of people who are very excited about that partnership with MHC.
Yeah.
And a lot of choice for students.
Sure.
And Sherry Craven has helped really shape and design that program. We have a number of people who are working in it who are phenomenal, including at the college. But and careers, my gosh, that organization has been unbelievable for us. And Thursday, they have a bunch of industry coming in at the collegiate building, and they tapped you on the shoulder to come in as well.
I saw a post, I put my name in, and I'm like,
so glad.
if I can sit at a table and help some kids out, I'm happy to be there.
Yeah. So even things like looking people in the eye, shaking their hand,
totally.
Practice interview questions. Yeah. Who do you hire, and how can I get on that list? And what an important way to structure the learning environment in school, to give people confidence about what's next. So that's one of our latest ones that launched last year, doubled in size this year. I believe we have approximately 120 kids in that program this year, which is just phenomenal. And then we're also working, you might have heard about it, on our Yule School of Agriculture, which is just across the highway from you. So we're really looking forward to that. And that's another example. Every single program we've had has been necessary to launch based on community support and involvement. And this one is no different. Without the Neubauers, this would have been impossible to get off the ground. They are an absolute powerhouse that has made so much happen. And then Mr. Yule, the generosity of Bill and Elizabeth is unmatched.
Oh, in this community?
It's just unmatched. And they are so supportive. Yeah. And one of the most interesting things about those two, they really could speak to whomever they wanted at their events. And there's a lineup of people trying to get in a word. And both of them sought out all the kids in that room on a number of different occasions, whether we were at the golf course or whether we were at the collegiate building. Yeah. And they make kids comfortable and feel important. And so not only are they generous with their finances, they're generous with their time. Yeah. And so we're really lucky to have the Yule Foundation and Corey Cuthbertson supporting us through that work. So really excited about that step too.
That's so good. The Yule family, I had the good fortune. I've met them. I assure you they won't know me, but I know them. We did some landscaping for them at their house there. But both of them are just so generous, just in how they approach, right? How they just approach life in general. And I didn't know that about their, I guess just penance to just want to communicate and get to know the next generation, right? Because that's really what this is. I want to talk about the fire a minute, because this was kind of my first introduction, I would say, into really kind of the change you can see in somebody. And again, I'm going to leverage a little bit, working with the youth group, but there was a young man in our group at Eagle Butte, and he was enrolled in this fire, and we had lots of conversations over a couple of years, and he was so engaged in it. And it was so neat because, one of the things you hear from today's kids are, I hate it when people ask, what are you going to do? Just dumbest question ever. So if you're an adult, quit asking it. Because they're like, I don't know. Like it seems harder today than it was when I was a kid or when you were a kid. But what I saw with this young man was all of a sudden there was a purpose in his day. And even if he was just showing up at the fire hall next door, not getting paid, it didn't matter, right? But there was a purpose. And then what happened is all of a sudden he's going out to these volunteer firefighting things. And volunteer is another aspect. So you're turning out kids with level 1, level 2. So here's a young man. He's probably maybe not going to do this as a career, but if he stays in rural communities, he's an asset to that community, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then he went from that, and all of a sudden he forest fires up north. He's heading up north to go fight those fires. Why? Because he can, and he's 18 or 19 years old. And I'm just looking at this and I'm going, what happened here? Like, how did this happen? So it was just an excitement where you see this and what's happening for others, right? And you may even know who I'm talking about. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's just amazing to watch.
It is, and you telling that story just gave me goosebumps because that's why we're doing what we're doing, and a big part of it is hearing stories like that, and that kids are excited to be part of those programs. The other thing we've really found is that when you experience success, the likelihood you'll experience more success goes up. It
grows,
and so you're feeling like you are accomplished within the fire program. So we call it South Alberta Fire and Rescue.
Okay.
And so you feel confident in that program. And then we're seeing, now we're starting to see some improvement in math. And now we're seeing a little bit more engagement in English. And now we're seeing attendance rates improve. And if you ask kids, what's special about school? Why do you like being here? Even if they're not in one of those programs, they're often quite proud that they are a part of their school environment. It might not be for them,
right,
but they're really glad to see that it's here and an option for their peers. And so that's been a real positive too. We weren't sure how that would go, but that turns out what we hear from kids.
So did you just happen to hit this at the right moment? The reason I say that is because obviously there's been a lot, being said right now that the traditional school paths are just diminishing a little bit, right? Like the opportunities for kids coming out of high school, going to university, it's getting harder and harder and harder to go into university. You look at some of the grades you have to have, and they're ending up with nothing, right? So, was it hard to balance those traditional paths with the changes that you've brought in as well, and figure out a way to not all of a sudden swing that pendulum too far the one way?
That's a really important question. There's no question the core of what we do is ensuring that students have the academic skills that they need. And so that is our main work. And we have unbelievable teachers who are making sure that students have those core foundations every single day. There was a couple of things that happened, maybe a bit of luck, that we had community members that were so willing to be a part of the programs that we were developing, because as I said earlier, we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But also part of it was a commitment to enhance programming in schools that led to future prospects and careers moving forward. So there was a focus and a mandate from the government to do so, which allowed us to access collegiate funding and other various grants, such as dual credit enhancement grants and those types of opportunities that allowed us to add some components into the school environment that suited a number of different students. Because one of the things you always have to balance is that you might bring in programming and it's for a relatively small number of students. So everything from our healthcare aid program, that program has been really important for some of our students, but it's a pretty small number.
I did not know you had that program.
We do, yes. And so that has been impactful for some kids. Sure. It can also be costly. And so how do you structure that, especially in rural communities where the cohorts are small?
Yeah.
And so there's a few different ways. One of them is through our partnerships, and we've been really fortunate to have those, as I already mentioned. Another is that we changed how we do transportation, and that has allowed us to move students to various locations throughout the day in a more affordable way, which has allowed us to access some of that programming as well. And that's not why that change happened, but it has been a major benefit for us, because we now own a number of our own buses. And so that has helped. So when we're bringing students to the college so they can learn on campus and actually experience a small portion of their day at a post-secondary institution, we find that the likelihood that they'll then choose to attend going forward goes way up, because they have comfort and connection and knowledge and adults they know they can speak to should they need to navigate that system. And that's already in place for them. And so that's been really important as well.
Yeah, building that confidence every step of the way, right? Familiarity breeds confidence. It feels good.
Yeah.
What does your leadership team look like? Because I'll be honest, like you're just you can just see the energy.
Oh, good.
And 8 years of incredibly hard work. What does that team look like that you're a part of? Leading, but it's got to be full of a bunch of leaders and people that are willing to take risks, willing to have things not go very well, and then pivot and figure out how to fix it.
So, I mean, it starts with our board of trustees.
Okay.
We have a board of trustees who is not only are they strong at governance, but they actually are incredibly supportive. They are willing to take risks themselves, and they understand sometimes we need to make decisions, and not everyone is necessarily going to support them, but we're going to try it and see if we're able to make it work. And if it's not perfect, we'll do whatever we can to fix it, and we'll change course if we have to.
Yeah.
And although that sounds really simple, for boards, that's scary because they are charged with being fiscally responsible. They have constituents they need to answer to. And so it can be hard for them. And I feel like I won the lottery a little bit with my board of trustees. And so that's where it begins. But I will also tell you, although we really do have a rock star leadership team, I'm so fortunate, but we also have all the way through our system people that will move mountains for kids. Like I have that in kindergarten classrooms and in grade 12 physics classrooms and English classrooms. I have that, across all 10 communities about approximately 10 different communities that we serve. And so really we have this pipeline of people who are, rolling up their sleeves and getting to work to figure out how we can create optimal learning environments. And so we've created a little bit of a flywheel, I like to say. So, we regularly get ideas from people across our system about things they would like to try. And we have a rule and an internal rule that we have to work really hard to figure out a way to say yes and. So, we say yes, and we have to think about this, or yes, and we've got to consider the financial impact or all those sorts of things. But we never start with no. And we're not perfect at it every once in a while, that's the craziest idea. But rarely, we really are trying to let people run with something they're excited about. And when you allow that to happen as a leadership team, then you're not always leading the charge. Sometimes you're just getting out of the way and making sure you're removing as many barriers and obstacles as you can to let your people shine and build something that's really, really incredible. So, maybe I get some credit sometimes for building things, but at least as much of it has been getting the heck out of somebody who's more talented than me's way. And so we're pretty cognizant of that and aware that there's nothing we have done that didn't happen without a whole huge network working really hard towards a common end. The other thing I would say is that we have done, I think, maybe not everybody would agree, but a good job of communicating the vision.
Yeah.
And so when that's done well, you can trust people to make it happen.
Yep.
And my gosh, when you turn our team loose, you turn a bunch of Prairie Rose employees, whether they're in Oyen or Foremost or Bow Island or Burdett, loose to make something happen, they deliver.
It's a good thing I don't have my pen out because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have heard a word. I would be writing notes the whole time. It's like, oh my gosh, you're just checking so many boxes. One of the things you said, you start with yes and, right? So John Maxwell, I remember being at an event he was speaking at, and what he said was, you always want to start on the other side of yes, right? If you start with no, you're stifled.
Right?
You will never grow. Yeah. You will never. So start with yes. And then what, right? And then when I think about what you're talking about too, because you're talking about a very diverse leadership group, all different communities spread out, like not exactly demographically close in a lot of cases, right? But that ability to embrace a small test, hey, this is something we want to do, not do it in such a way that it's like going to be hugely costly. Let's figure if there's some traction here, and then take it to the next step. That's not easy to breed or encourage into people all the time. So have you just created, as maybe the best way I could say it is a culture of learning right now? And I know that's kind of funny to say when we're talking about education.
I love it.
Yeah. But what was going through my head as you were speaking was, we always encourage our kids, they're going to school. Why are you going to school? You're there to learn. Simple, right? As teachers, have you now created an environment of learning for them that maybe the kids look at this and they see their teachers getting engaged. Their teachers are learning new things, doing fun things, doing things that they're passionate about. And what trickle effect does that cause?
Yeah, interesting question. I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I sure hope so. That would be the ultimate goal. I think part of it is that we serve rural families and they're the pull themselves up by the bootstraps kind of people, and they're willing to take some risks and roll up their sleeves. And we need help in a school to bring something to life. They're there, and they're our biggest supporters and make a lot happen too. So some of it, I think, is that we're serving a population that is really hungry for this. Some of it is that we have staff in those locations who really listen and who try to make it fit, what is needed for those students. Now, again, I don't want to overstate, like there's no question we have challenges in our field right now. Education isn't all rainbows and unicorns, and there are some things that we've had to work through that have been really hard, and those will carry on. But there's a lot of joy. I can tell you there's not a Prairie Rose school that I walk into where you're not able to see joyful moments happening the entire duration of the time that you spend there. And, part of what I think the work of a leader is to see that, notice it, mention it, capture it, share it if you can, and really make sure that you acknowledge the hard work of the team. And I sure hope that I do a good job of that. I sure hope so.
Yeah, it's encouraged to talk, or you have to encourage and talk about the wins along the way, right? Because it's never ending. The job is never over. How do you manage sometimes those hard conversations, though, when maybe something didn't quite go as planned or things aren't hitting the way everybody expected them to? What does that look like?
Well, isn't that the real test and trick of leadership? I mean, I think a couple of things. If you have noticed all the things that a person has contributed and done well along the way, those conversations are easier because there's already trust, and they know that you're not judging them on the one time they've made a mistake because you've seen all the good things they have contributed. So that I think is really important. Now, that said, sometimes there are things that really go wrong, and there are really hard conversations that need to happen. I find that if you are able to sit down, talk about it in a straightforward manner, and do your best to work it out, that's important. I also find, though, that if you want to create a culture of innovation and moving forward, you can't perseverate on mistakes.
No.
Like you can't ideate and implement and launch and execute across the finish line if you're terrified of mistakes. And so
it doesn't work.
It just doesn't work, right? And so as a leader, you've got to accept that it's not going to be perfect. You've got to probably model the fact that it's not going to be perfect and encourage people through that process of not getting it quite right. And so it's a balance, as you say. You've got to really be attentive and understanding and supportive. Or people will just quietly quit, and not necessarily bring
quiet
things
quitting.
apart.
It's a real thing, right?
It's a thing.
Yeah. What do you find with the people that you're working with right now that their fear of failure is minimal for the most part across the board? They understand that part of their role, part of their job is to maybe come up with some of these crazy, weird, and wild ideas?
I think so. I think that, like I said, we don't get everything right all the time, but I sure hope we're moving in that direction. And if I were to judge it based on how often somebody on our staff reaches out to share something they're excited about or something that they would like to try, then I would say we're doing all right. Like, because we hear those ideas often. And actually, we now hear them from outside of our staff members. We'll hear them from, others in the community, parents. And actually, we've had more than one student, point out,
I was just going to ask that.
When you're zagging, and they let us know. And that I view as a win for us. So
the culture's being created. Right?
We're working on it.
That's so good. When we talk about kids again, what is one of the first skills that you've seen over the last 7 or 8 years when they find relevance, when they find purpose? What would be one of the first skills that shows up?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it might depend a little bit on the students, but I think one of them is the confidence and willingness to engage and speak and converse with adults. It's such an important skill and was something we were seeing lost a little. Like students were actually afraid to make a phone call and book an appointment. You know, they're so used to texting and the hesitancy to engage in real life with the world was really showing up. And that's one of the first things I would say that I have noticed. Maybe more willingness to advocate for themselves and to speak up.
Yeah. So we talked briefly. So that's why I love that thing on Thursday, right? It's an opportunity to sit down in front of a young person and have a conversation. We're also involved in the Women in Trades. I think, Nora, who you met when you walked in the door the other day, she came up, she's like, what are we going to do about this? I think we've got like 20 young ladies coming here next week, Monday, or the Monday after. Wonderful. I don't even know.
Good.
And it's funny because all I say is, let's just give them a space, right? We can show them what we do. But let's just give them a space to just have conversations with them, right? If that means we got to shut our crew down for half a day and just bring them all back in here and engage these young ladies in trades, because I get a little frustrated, if I can speak honestly, that we're never viewed as a trade in the landscape and irrigation world. I've got 2 guys that are in the apprenticeship program up at Old School, right? Or Old College right now. Okay. And I've talked to Medicine Hat College about this too, where it's like, nobody ever talks about landscaping as a trade. I love getting that message out to these kids at the school level, middle school to high school, because it is like what we do here. We do a lot of cool stuff.
Absolutely.
And be it irrigation, landscaping, reclamation, like we're checking a lot of boxes, right? So I'm coming to you with an idea, Reagan.
Yeah, and it's a good one. Like my wheels are already turning. We create something like that, and all of a sudden we might have the most beautiful playgrounds in the province. Right?
Who knows, right?
That could be really exciting.
Yeah. You end up engaging in with a bunch of kids that now all of a sudden view their community differently. That's something we really strive for here. We understand that everything we do is community building. Everything.
Absolutely.
Every park, every playground, every trail we landscape beside, it's all about the community. So we're always trying to figure out how to navigate some of these young minds.
Yeah, I love it. And a network of these types of ideas has been created now across the province through the collegiate program. One of our neighboring divisions, they're called Palliser School Division, has a really, really impressive trades program that they've developed. And I think there's 5 or 6 different school divisions that are part of it. And they have a number of trades that people sometimes don't think of as part of the trades that they're launching. So I'm going to check in with them and see if that one's on their list. If it's not, maybe they'll add it, because they're doing such a great job, and I'm interested too. So no, it is. It is one of those ones where you want. I look at it simply from the standpoint of opportunity, right? Absolutely.
And options. Everybody likes options. So more options you can put in front of them, then the better. Like I think about my own journey. I did 4 years post-secondary at 1 year in Phoenix, 3 years at U of C. Dropped out after my 4th year and said, I hate this. I can't stand it here. I was going into accounting, and then realized this is what I love. And I was working on golf courses, went to Olds, and the rest is history. And now my son just did his first year of the apprenticeship.
Wonderful.
So there is careers out there for this sort of things, and they're rewarding, that's for sure. So so we just it's a perfect segue into this, like business leaders. This community you've mentioned has been a huge support of your school division. And I think even probably for the Medicine Hat School District, it's been the same thing, right? Medicine Hat very much is, as a whole, a rural community. If you're talking to somebody like me, what is a good first step to get involved in what is happening in our region right now?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, I think one of the first steps is to engage if there's a particular school that business is close to or has connections with the school principal. We would always encourage businesses to reach out directly to our central office team. They are really responsive and excited about the ways that we can bring community into our schools. And then Careers is an organization that is independent but works with school divisions across the entire province, and their network is really powerful. And so those would be, I think, the options that I think gets them connected really, really quickly and engaged with what's happening in schools, because we need We need them, and we need their help. We need their expertise and their guidance. We're seeing more and more business leaders having even conversations in schools about how they make things work. Recently, we launched a class at Eagle Butte, and it's a finance class where they learn like basic finances.
Financial literacy.
Financial literacy.
Yeah.
So it might be about their own personal finances, but also ties to business. And we've had a number of financial leaders in the community come in and speak to those students. And again,
Wonderful.
Everybody sits a little straighter, writes notes a little differently when someone like that is in the room, because they are in the industry and a part of it, and it's a really powerful part of the learning experience that we just want more of.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes, and I'm sure you've been to conferences, workshops, whatever, you hear one little thing and it can just change you forever. Yeah, right. So I love the fact that you guys are doing this and putting, really cool, interesting people in front of these kids. And you're right. Maybe they do quit scrolling Instagram for 5 minutes and listen.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Have you had any business leaders? And I say this because every now and then we get a little bit surprised by the young ones. Sometimes we're surprised well, sometimes we're surprised not so well. Right. And I think when we talk about getting involved in trades programs, do they understand the level of patience, like ones that have gotten involved in the program? This is not a quick burn, right? Like this is a slow burn when you're bringing in a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old and starting to educate them on what this is. Have you felt that's been very well received, or kind of a little bit of a mixed bag?
Well, I think you make a really good point. I think the team who's working most closely with liaising through those relationships, it makes sure that they help all parties be aware that some of these kids are new and they're going to make mistakes and might need a little bit of help and more guidance and mentorship than certainly you would with an adult employee. But I would also argue there's a reward there that is I think of value to a lot of those leaders. I'll give you an example. We've got Terry Super, who is the owner of Super T Aviation, and she has at times had to coach some of our students through some of the professional skills that they would need to demonstrate to be employed in the aviation industry. But I haven't seen someone with as much pride as she has when some of them have landed some of those big coveted positions, right? So there's some cost and some time and some real commitment that has to come from those leaders. But I think they also see the value on the other end of it and how much it enhances the community as a whole.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we do enough to recognize their contributions. Probably not. We should probably do more, but we're sure grateful for it. And, I think a lot of those kids really make it worth it for them.
Yeah. And I'm sure Terry would say, the only reward I need is the one that when I see those tires hit the ground, right? And then you see the position get acquired and everything else. And I think that's just a great message, even just to bring forward in that moment is, the importance of the rewards being when you see the development and growth of somebody that you're mentoring, working with, or whatever. That can really, what I have found is stimulate wanting to do more of it. Right? It builds a little something within you, and then you just get that belly burn, and you're just like, let's go, let's do more. Yeah, you
did it, kid. And I'm so proud of you. Like that's
exactly.
Quite a
Where's the next one? It's exactly. I'm glad to hear that. What responsibilities, I guess, do we have as business leaders to make sure that we're being visible within our community, within the school division? And kind of where I'm going with this is really just kind of bringing a message out that, the trades are ever growing, right? And I think in a community like ours where we're already struggling to get kids to stay here, right? That's been an ongoing message in the construction industry for, I think, the last 10 years. I've been listening to it at association meetings 3 times a year. How can we be more visible, I guess, to make sure that we're doing our part to provide the environments for these kids to even know that staying here is an option?
Well, I think businesses have done a really nice job of starting that conversation. And if the waiting list we have for our trades program is any indication, word is getting out.
Yeah.
I think organizations, again, like Careers, and there are others, Junior Achievement and others who are sharing that message, that helps, absolutely. And I think making sure we celebrate the accomplishments of kids who have gone in that direction, because they are plentiful. You can earn a really good living and build something that is exactly the kind of future you're looking for in those fields. And, even little things like, you know how you'll have like signing days or something for athletes? Yeah. Like, what if you had that for somebody who, got their 4th year, or I've signed up for if you find ways to celebrate those accomplishments, that they can be seen as a really viable option for kids, I think that helps. We have a couple of billboards up with a couple, I think we have a couple of girls dressed in firefighter costumes, and we're trying to make them look just like, you would if you were a hockey team billboard, right?
Yeah.
And I think, although that's a small thing, I think it makes the difference. We need to make sure it's an option that's esteemed and that people look at as something to be really proud of. And we all have a role to play in that. And I think we've started.
So you're now 8 years into this, and what goes through my head now is you've got some young men and women that have gone on to do great things. Are you bringing them back to share stories?
We're sure trying. Some of them are so busy; they're hard to capture. But we do have a number of opportunities for those students to come back and speak to the larger group. And we share those stories when we're talking to businesses and such, and talk about some of the things that kids are doing now. And people are really interested in that. We had a teacher just a couple of days ago send an email update on what one of her former students was doing next. And it's becoming absolutely part of the norm. Make sure people know.
Yeah. That's I sit there and I think how good would it be to have somebody who went on to be a successful firefighter come back and say, this is where I started. This is where it all began for me, right? Or a pilot, so what are the trades? What are the trades within your trade school?
So it's dangerous that you asked me that, because it's good that we mentioned that we have such a strong team. I don't even know if I could name them all, but there are 10 of them.
Yeah, I know. 10.
Yeah, 10.
Yet landscaping isn't one of them?
I don't think so, but maybe
it is.
Soon.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're organized in clusters, and students have a chance to explore the various clusters in the trades, and then they choose a focus.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so they can... obviously, if there's one they have no interest in, they don't choose to go look at that, right? But they can choose multiple, see what...
So year 1, they do a little bit in all of them.
Okay.
Year 2, they choose a cluster. And then in year 3, they've now focused.
And starts in grade 10?
It does.
Okay.
Yes. And if they are able to, it depends a little bit on their pathway and what other courses that they're taking. But we will have some students who are able to finish their entire first year well in grade 12. Wow. So they'll be able to enter the field well on their way with industry connections built in their home community. So if they live in Oyen, that will be built in the Oyen community, which is obviously then heavily supported by the town, because there's a reason for their young people to stay and come back. And a powerful reason, and meaningful, gainful employment. Wow. And so it's just a really important way to structure what that looks like. And like I said, I'm not the mastermind behind that at all, but we have a team that every year adds a few little things to it to make it better and better.
Yeah, well, that would be like Levi just said, he did his first, so that would have been like him doing his first year in grade 12. Right. Which is crazy. Right. And I know even when I talk to people about the fire thing, they come out, with a level 2, which is, I'm not sure what, I think it's Vermilion, offers the firefighter training. And I remember them telling me, I'm graduating high school with what I would have had to go pay top dollar for up at Vermilion. And they may not like you because of this, but that's a story for another day. But imagine that, coming out at 18 years old-ish with training behind your name, having been over, and I keep coming back to it, but you said it, communicating with adults, sitting around with adults, generating respect from adults and to adults, right? Because now, they're not looking at you like a little young whippersnapper anymore, right? You've got credibility behind you.
That's right.
So,
and some of the students, they may need to do additional training to be at the level of some of those other firefighters. But as you mentioned before, firefighting is really important because in rural communities, when that call comes, everybody shows up.
Yep.
And now the percentage of students who are trained and skilled in helping to put those grass fires out goes up. And how much more confident are you as a parent in your child going out to fight that fire, that they've now had that, they understand what happens when the wind, on a volunteer basis. And so that, like you said, enriches the community as a whole, but makes it safer and meaningful. So when you have those volunteer connections, you're part of a volunteer fire department. You have roots there, and you want to be continuing to contribute into small town, rural Alberta. It's really important. It's really important.
I lived in Bow Island for 3 years, Tabor for 2. But in particular, I remember Bow Island, there was such an extreme pride of those people that were on the volunteer firefighting.
Yeah, there still is.
Like they got the garb, they're decked right out in volunteer firefighting swag. Like it is huge to a community of 2,500 people, right?
And then you have these skilled firefighters who are giving of their time to support that next generation. So it's so good for our students to have those mentors, but I think it's actually also good for the mentors to have those mentees. And it adds value for their experience as well. And they're able to share, hey, look, this is what I know, and this is how we can take care of this land that we're all living on, and how we can look after our neighbors. And it's pretty powerful to watch.
It is, and I'm actually just kind of reflecting back. It's 20 odd years since I lived there, but the other thing I would say is that, we talk about how it kind of ingrains them more into the community and brings the community closer to them and them closer to the community. But I think about, whether it might not be a grass fire, it might be an emergency call on an accident on a highway. And again, I got a flood of memories from 3 years in Bow Island. When tragedy hits a small town, those people that have the skills and have developed the skills, be it firefighting, be it EMS, whatever, that are all on a volunteer basis, like you have an opportunity to knit your community together, right? Because that is your community. So I love that they're coming out with these tangible skills that they can keep there. I want to share something with you here.
Please,
as a way of kind of closing, but I think it's impactful. I know you've probably already seen it. It's a bit of a long read for me, so I need everyone to be a little patient with me. But you talked about the Neubauer family, and Nicole, I do believe, is in your enclave there.
Yep.
And Nicole.
So is Mark. Her husband. Yeah.
There we go. Nicole recently posted on LinkedIn. And if you would just allow me to read this.
Yeah, please.
Because I think it's just incredibly impactful. It says, what a milestone moment for our 22-year-old son, Logan Neubauer. You know where I'm going. His journey started 7 years ago at the Prairie Rose School, public schools. High school student enrolled at the South Alberta Flight Academy offered to students attending Eagle Butte. He graduated with his private pilot's license and from there continued his training, earning his commercial pilot's license, multi IFR ratings, and became a flight instructor. Since he was 4 years old, he dreamed of becoming a pilot. Today, he is flying a WestJet Encore Q400 filled with passengers to Saskatoon, his inaugural flight as a first officer. This is an example of what can happen when children learn how dedicated effort sustained over time can yield excellent results. We are so grateful that Logan had the opportunity, I think being the key word there, to pursue his dream while attending high school. This program made his time in high school exciting, meaningful, challenging, and relevant. His learning moved beyond the four walls of the classroom and into the sky above. Thank you to everyone who helped him soar, parentheses, his dad drove to Calgary this morning to fly as one of his first passengers. And you, Dr. Reagan Weeks, were tagged in that post. What does that mean to you?
Oh, well, it just about brings tears to my eyes. But, Logan sent me a text that day, and it's pretty powerful. We're really proud of him, and it's why we do what we do. It's why we're here. And so there are hundreds of stories thousands of stories like this. And what a gift to be a teacher. Like, what a gift to have a very small part in making those things happen for kids. So mostly I think I'm just lucky, but it's good. Yeah. It's good to be here. One of the things we're really excited about is I convinced Logan to order an extra WestJet uniform while he was getting outfitted for his inaugural flight and all the subsequent ones to follow. And we'll be framing it in one of those glass acrylic things that we typically frame hockey jerseys.
Yes,
in. We've
100%.
got Basha's and McKenna's hanging up in our collegiate building, and pretty soon we're going to have that WestJet uniform with our first pilot signature.
Get an autograph on that sucker,
and it'll be right beside McKenna's. So
what an amazing idea!
Isn't it great? Yeah. So we're excited about that too, and yeah, like I said, I'm fortunate to be a teacher. Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, Reagan, I can't thank you enough for doing what you're doing, and your team for doing what they're doing. For these young men and women in the PRSD right now. I think there's a lot of it is getting out. You're starting to hear more and more about this. I don't know if whether you're, the mover and shaker, that's kind of the trendsetter, whatever have you. But when I see what's happening here, and I think back to my time in high school, I wish that would have been there for me. I wouldn't have wasted 4 years. Not a waste, but keep giving meaning to these kids. And, if you can come up with any ways that I can support here, the community as a whole can support, we'd love to hear about it. Just keep doing what you guys are doing, please.
Well, thanks so much for having me and for all that you do for our community and letting a few of our kids in here. I know they're lucky to be working here for the summer and they're excited about it. So thank you for that and meeting with them on Thursday. We sure appreciate it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for your time today, Reagan.
Thank you.